On September 12th, Apple presented its new flagship smartphone model, the iPhone 15. One of the most notable features of this model, compared to the past ones, is the USB-C port. The decision to equip the iPhone with the USB-C was not taken by the engineers in Cupertino, but thousands of miles away in Brussels by the European institutions. Apple is the last tech company to comply with the requirements of EU directives and regulations, of which the USB-C is just one among many. And this does not just affect tech companies, but also social media platforms, pharmaceutical companies, food manufacturers. Whenever Brussels sets a new standard, this tends to become, in many cases, a global standard. So how is that Brussels and European institutions yield a power larger than the US government and Congress could only dream of, over some of the largest tech companies in the world? In this video, we'll talk about the so-called Brussels effect, how the EU became a global regulatory authority, and the possible consequences of a change of scenario. I'm Mirko Paradiso from Euractiv. Let's dive in.
The term Brussels effect refers to the European Union's unilateral ability to regulate the global marketplace. The EU is one of the largest and wealthiest consumer markets in the world, and there are very few global companies that can afford not to trade in the EU. So as the price for accessing the European market, these companies need to follow European regulations.
Anu Bradford, professor of EU law at the Columbia Law School, is the person that gave the Brussels effect its name. With her, we also discussed her last publication, Digital Empires, which is also relevant for the focus of this video. But before diving in, to understand the Brussels effect, we first need to understand what the European Union is. Oversimplifying, the European Union is a group of 27 countries that came together and gave up parts of their sovereignty to some supranational institutions, the European institutions. Some policies are managed by European institutions in an exclusive way, like commercial policies, while others are shared with member states and others remain exclusively in the hands of the states. The original goal was to create an economic union that would help countries maintain peace after the devastation of World War II. The European Coal and Steel Community was established in 1951, followed by the European Economic Community in 1958. Over the subsequent years, the participating countries succeeded in establishing the European single market for products, services, and people. Now, regulating this market and harmonizing laws of different countries was a big legislative effort, which countries took up with the goal of creating a fair, competitive, and safe market for the EU citizens, following the principles of the social market economy. In time, the economic union became a political union with the birth of the European Union in the 90s, and these values were enshrined in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU. The value of the single market allowed the EU to yield a certain amount of market power towards companies, and the regulations of the EU became a global model. Other countries carbon copied these regulations, or companies adopted these standards as global standards, as they could not afford different product regimes. So, like this, the Brussels effect was born, and here we are years later, watching Apple introduce the USB-C because the EU said so.
So interestingly, I don't think the Brussels effect started as the EU institutions' attempt to rule the world. It was really reflecting the EU's desire to pursue its goal of European integration, to create a single market. And to create the single market, then the EU needs to pass on regulations, because those regulations then harmonize the different rules across the member states and further trade that takes place across the EU. When this started, I would say that it's really the last 10 to 15 years when we've seen a massive buildup of regulation of the tech industry.
In terms of regulating tech companies and social media, the EU has been very active and engaged. Besides the Radio Equipment Directive, the EU introduced the General Data Protection Regulation, which became a model for data protection laws around the world. It recently introduced the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act to regulate content moderation, protect users, and ensure fair competition among the major social media platforms. Finally, the EU is also developing the first artificial intelligence regulation in the world, as AI and language models usage have become more common in recent years. Not only the European Commission established rules, but it also called out tech companies that attempted to sidestep its law. Big names like Google, Apple, Meta, Amazon, Intel and Qualcomm have all been slapped with fines on multiple occasions for breaking rules around data protection, competition, protection of users and taxes. The EU has succeeded in establishing fair rules and ensuring that big tech companies, some of the most influential and powerful entities globally, adhere to them. In the USA, where most of these companies originate, making rules has been a lot more challenging.
The United States is also considering whether it ought to follow the EU's lead. So traditionally, the US has been kind of very techno-libertarian, free market-oriented, very hesitant to intervene through regulation for the fear of then slowing down the country's innovation. But now the conversation is shifting. So we certainly see the public opinion favor much more regulation in the US, and we see bills proposed in Congress. However, we have not really seen these efforts to amount to any legislation. So the US Congress remains divided, very polarized, and rather dysfunctional.
Undoubtedly, regulations are one of the most effective instruments of soft power of the European Union today. Anu Bradford termed it regulatory superpower capable of imposing global rules, but this format could actually be destined to fade. The EU has always had a problem with enforcing its own rules. There are several reasons behind it, and some are a consequence of the structure of the EU. 27 countries interpreting those rules differently or infringing them on purpose, long bureaucratic processes and loopholes in the rules themselves. But this turn of events also reflects the way the world is changing. The major tech companies are becoming increasingly larger and more monopolistic. A more powerful phone producer or social media tomorrow could decide not to implement the regulations of the EU Commission. The same company might also spend more resources to lobby against a specific regulation to even enter into force. At the same time, the European single market's value is being caught up by other markets: India, Southeast Asia, China, Africa, and even South America. This shift is positive. Emerging nations can now more prominently voice their concerns and needs in the global economic landscape. The regulations stemming from the EU are, of course, predominantly Eurocentric, and global standards should encompass global perspectives, not just Europeans. However, this scenario can only materialize if countries and new markets adopt the same standards of the social market economy and enhance them. And this is not exactly what is happening now.
So the United States has a hard time legislating in the domain of digital regulation. The Europeans have had a hard time enforcing those digital regulations that have been passed. China does not have the difficulty of legislating. And when the Chinese Communist Party decides that it's time to enforce, the companies capitulate. And China can also enforce. So that leaves us with this very uncomfortable notion that if the Europeans and Americans cannot make sure that their governance model is also effective, we as a society are either governed by authoritarians or we are governed by tech companies. And that is the kind of outcome that is really, really difficult and very detrimental for anybody who believes in liberal democracy as the foundation of our digital society.
You don't need to be an economist to understand that a market dominated by few powerful companies is not an ideal situation for consumers and the environment, and that a competitive market regulated by democratically elected institutions is a preferable situation. Doesn't matter if these are in Brussels, Nigeria, or dispersed around the world. From Brussels, that's all. Go check Euractiv.com if you want to find out more.